myself. Divine rise, blessed be to the day. Divine rise and blessed be to the day. May it be everything you require to create everything that you desire. On this moon day, we understand that we are to invest into change. On this, when we think about the moon and investing into the change. So it led me to the thought of the only apology. We've all heard this. We've heard this many times before. The only true apology is changed behavior. The only true apology is changed behavior. One more time. The only true apology is changed behavior. Now I'm going to take it to another level. What's stopping you from apologizing? What's stopping you from apologizing to yourself? What's stopping you from giving yourself a true apology? What's stopping you from giving yourself a true apology? Investing in the changing of your behavior. Investing in the changing of your behavior. The hardest thing about an apology, I'm going to tell you a little story real quick as I get this shared out there. The hardest thing about an apology is once we state it, it starts the clock. Once we start with our apology, it starts our clock. It starts that clock. I've noticed for myself, I remember stating apologies, but it was more from a sense of simply admitting what I did or admitting what was done. But then followed by was this conversation of whys. It was always this conversation of whys. I would say sorry, followed by aspects of whys I did it and why I felt like I needed to do it. And from there, that was it. That was it. We put ourselves in positions every single day, mainly because we're not ready to apologize to ourselves. We're not ready to apologize to ourselves. One of the biggest things when it comes into doing your shadow work, doing that inner healing work, is going to be the apology. We've talked about acknowledgement. We've talked about acceptance. Now we're going to get into apologies. Understanding that the only true aspects of an apology is to change behavior, that requires us to invest into understanding the behavior is the effect. We have to understand that the behavior is the effect. The true thing that we have to acknowledge and accept, when it comes to us apologizing to ourselves is we're apologizing for the behavior. We are accepting inside of that space the emotional catalyst that made us act and react in such a behavior. Now this goes into the point of acknowledging the original emotion. The hardest thing about apologizing is the effects. The hardest thing about apologizing is the effects. How it's going to feel to you, how's it going to feel, what's it going to reflect into others, but it's something that must be done. One thing that I had to learn in the beginning, just in that first waves of my shadow work, was the apologies to my family, the apologies to my mother, the apologies to my pops, the apologies to family members, the apologies to the reflections that gave me the experiences of what I went through. That was the hardest thing for me to do. It's hard for us to apologize to others for what they did simply because we're still using that as a voucher. Sometimes it's super hard to apologize or to even acknowledge or say I'm sorry, to apologize, to take in and say that I forgive, because we're still using that traumatic experience as a voucher. We're still using the traumatic experience as a voucher. We'll use that traumatic experience to keep our behavior where we're doing what we're doing. We use that voucher whenever we feel guilty. We use that voucher. We'll use that voucher whenever we feel guilt. We use that voucher when we start feeling regret. We'll use this voucher every single time. We'll use that voucher. I remember using my voucher with my mother. I remember using that voucher with my mother all the time because I didn't want to take responsibility for what it was that I needed to do within my own space. So I always threw that voucher out there. I always went back to age 11 and age 12. Well, if this didn't happen if this and this didn't happen when I was 12, then maybe I could do this. They didn't even match. They didn't even match. These two things didn't even match. But I was still stuck in the emotional aspects or that emotional channel that kept me from accepting responsibility for my actions. So every time I came into that moment, my apology was spoken through guilt. My apology was spoken through guilt. The only time that I felt I needed to apologize or speak on forgiveness was based on guilt. The only way that I felt that I needed to have a conversation with something was based on guilt, was based on the buildup of the energy. Only when it got too deep, only when it got too hard for me to manage myself is when I wanted to start taking this false sense of accountability for my actions. And then even then, when we take this false sense of responsibility and accountability for our actions, when we take that false sense of accountability and responsibility for our actions, it's only for what? A couple hours? A couple of days? It's only until things cool down. And then we get used to manipulating the situation in that space. We get used to manipulating the situation in that space. All because we're still holding on. We're still holding on to that voucher. We're still holding on to that voucher. That voucher that allows us to allow nothing to go beyond the surface. Great risings, great risings. We hold on to that voucher through that trauma, through that event. We throw up that voucher card every time something happens. One of the biggest things, like, when you're dealing with your family, the biggest thing, the hardest thing is going to be with your family is apologizing or saying, I apologize, but at this moment in time, I'm taking a level of acceptance, accountability, and responsibility in my actions and how I've reacted to this situation. I am forgiving you. I am forgiving you for what you've done, because in that space, I now realize that you are simply repeating from your own emotional experience, the things that you have been through. I respect and I accept that you are it. I accept and respect your space, but at this time, I need separation to start healing the aspects of me. Now that sounds easier said than done, because once we say it, now that's when the work begins. It's not when you make the apology. It's not when you make the apology, because the apology is simply setting the foundation. It's the changes that you're about to make. It's the boundaries that you are about to set in place. It's the new parameters that you're about to set in place for yourself in your growth. It is the parameters that you are setting for your growth. It's the stepping out of, but this was good and that was good. I'm going to keep this and I'm going to keep that. I'm here to let you know you got to let everything go. It's easy for us to sit here and say, yeah, I'm letting go and I'm releasing and I'm letting go of everything, because we're only letting go of surface material. We're only letting go of the surface. You're only letting go of the surface because somewhere inside of you, deep down inside of you, you still need something to blame that behavior on. You got used to being able to use the trauma to blame your behavior on. I grew up in a very broken environment. My mother wasn't there. My mother did this. My father did this. My sister did this. My brothers did this. Family did this, this, and this. So that's the way I am. It's time to stop blaming others for your behavior. It's time to start tapping into really getting to learn those emotions with yourself, those channels in yourself, so you can actually start developing yourself. So you actually can start that development process. It's hard for a lot of us to actually step into that development process. It's easy to go through, it's easy to go grab the books, it's easy to go grab the information, but that development process requires you applying it. It's going to require a lot of destruction, because a lot of this destruction has to happen because you can't build without first destroying. Are you willing to let your apology do some destroying? Are you willing to say, I can't be in this space? Are you willing to stop apologizing through guilt? Are you willing to stop apologizing through fear of losing something? Are you willing to apologize with embracing the fear of losing something? Ask yourself the simple question and you get that real answer to yourself. I want you to invest into the day. I want you to invest into your growth. But the only way to invest into your growth is realizing that apology that you're looking for, the first one is with you. The first apology is with you, because that's the only way you can embrace changing the behavior. That's the only way you can invest in the day of changing the behavior. This is how you stop being driven to maintain and to survive and to keep everything in a certain space, giving yourself a plan B. When we stay in this thought process of being driven, we stay in this mindset of a plan B. When we accept that we have to drive, we accept the course that's in front of us. We accept the course in front of us. We take on that course that's in front of us. We are aware of what we have to do on that course, and we're willing to take that. We're willing to take that drive. When we're being driven by the external narrative, the external definition, we'll always find ourselves lapping behind. When you're always driven to go do something based on the title, based on that voucher, that trauma, that event, that title, you'll always be laps behind. You'll never embrace the day. You can never become the day. You can't become the day when you're stuck on being driven everywhere. When you're being driven, how are you going to be able to set the course if you being driven? How are you going to set the course if you're being driven? Your true purpose is you being the driver. Your true purpose is being the driver, accepting the course, setting the parameters of the course, being aware of your course, accepting that there is going to be a gap, accepting that there's going to be things left in the dust, accepting that those things are back there for a reason. And if they're meant for you to work, if it's meant for it to be in your course, then it will show up when it needs to. Stop making them fucking U-turns. Stop turning around, looking back, wondering, are they going to catch up? Because everybody can't go. Everybody can't go. I want you to be the fucking best. Everything, you know, hit me in the inbox. Hit me at GODicalAlchemistLLC.com for readings, setting up that shadow work consultation, setting up shadow work therapy sessions, setting up that inner child healing therapy, and many more sessions after we do that initial consultation. Because I just want you to be the best. I want you to invest into the day. I want you to invest into the day. I want you to become the day. You got to submit to what it is that you're trying to become. You've done it unconsciously forever and allowed that to be your driver. Now it's time for you to be, you allow that to be what drives you, and you allow your emotions to be your driver. You allowed your emotions to be your driver. Now it's time for you to step in the driver's seat. It's time to clean up. It's time to elevate. I love you. We love us. Ashe.